Nigeria announces visa restrictions on 13 countries as world leaders continue to take steps to halt the spread of coronavirus. Oil prices fall below $30 as OPEC and IEA warn developing countries could lose up to 85% of oil and gas income this year. And markets around the world have been reacting negatively to the epidemic, with signs that stimulus by governments aren't enough to wade concerns. This is Business Express reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Amina Nujaim, and a warm welcome. Senate has called on President Muhammadu Buhari to address the nation on the dreaded COVID-19 in the country and to set up a special intervention fund for tackling the scourge. This follows a motion by Senator Danjuma Goje, who also urged the federal government to urgently establish testing centers in all the states of the federation. The Senate also advised the federal government to shut down all airports in the country except the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, and Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, for easy monitoring, while all Nigerians coming into the country from high-risk countries be quarantined. Senators also canvassed the tighter border control and for government at all levels to immediately embark on sensitization. Similarly, the federal government has imposed travel ban on 13 countries, including the United States and United Kingdom, as part of further measures against the spread of COVID-19 in the country. Secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, in a media briefing said the Presidential Task Force for the Control of COVID-19 arrived at these measures after an assessment of the global situation.
The federal government of Nigeria is restricting entry into the country for travelers from the following 13 nations: China, Italy, Iran, South Korea, Spain, Japan, France, Germany, Norway, the United States of America, the United Kingdom, Netherlands, and Switzerland. These are all countries with over 1,000 cases domestically. All persons arriving in Nigeria who might have visited these countries 15 days prior to such arrival will be subjected to supervised self-isolation and testing for 14 days. The federal government is temporarily suspending the issuance of all visas on arrival. The federal government is also counseling all Nigerians to cancel or postpone all non-essential travels to these countries. The federal government urges public health authorities of countries with high burden to conduct diligent departure screening of passengers and also endorses travel advisories to their nationals to postpone travels to Nigeria. These restrictions will come into effect from Saturday, 21st of March, 2020, and it will last for the following 4 weeks, subject to review as the situation unfolds.
Similarly, the federal government says it will explore all alternatives towards ensuring that the nation's citizens are fully protected in the face of coronavirus pandemic. President Muhammadu Buhari stated this at a briefing session with members of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council, said Nigeria had foreseen the attendant economic problems. Let's get the complete report from Adam Sambo.
Sequel to the coronavirus pandemic, oil prices in the international market have been oscillating between $29 and $30 per barrel, as opposed to the benchmark price of $57 for Nigeria's 2020 budget. President Muhammadu Buhari said although many other variables, including production cost and political impact, determine the oil prices, Nigeria is committed to seeing how to survive the falling oil prices as the problem had been envisaged. He said protecting the people from the vagaries of international economic fortunes and associated challenges is a task that must be done by his administration. While stressing the importance of education and healthcare, the president maintained that if the people are adequately educated, they will neither accept any form of mismanagement by leadership nor allow themselves to be manipulated by those promoting ethnic and religious sentiments. President Buhari promised that inputs in agriculture, education, and healthcare would continue as much as practicable. Chairman of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council, Professor Doyin Salami, had earlier painted sobering scenarios of what could happen to the nation's economy if the COVID-19 pandemic lasted for too long. These include slower growth as the supply and demand sides of global economy would be affected, uncertainty which would erode confidence and lead governments to act unilaterally instead of cooperatively, further drop in oil prices, and lockdowns gaining grounds around the world. There will also be oil glut, trade imbalance, drop in foreign reserve, as well as increasing joblessness. The Economic Advisory Council noted that many countries may go into economic recession and therefore advocated hard work for Nigeria to keep its head above the waters. It also recommended, amongst others, a possible revision of the 2020 budget with priority spending on healthcare, reprioritization of expenditure on infrastructure to focus on projects nearing completion with pro-poor effects, curtailing recurrent expenditure, and boosting of government revenue. Members of the Economic Advisory Council stressed that the projections may seem dire, but the worst may be avoided with hard work and scrupulous implementation of policies.
And the Senate is considering the amendment of the 2020 Appropriation Act, which was passed last year, December, following the impact of the coronavirus on the global economy. This was contained in the interim report of the Joint Session Committees on Finance, Appropriation and National Planning.
The downsizing of the Appropriation Act as passed by the National Assembly is inevitable.
While personnel costs at all times must be met, we can agree on 80% or 60% funding of overheads.
I mean, there are certain things that we need to do. We need to look at cost of governance. We need to look at a lot of duplicate agencies that we have.
And the federal government has banned all foreign trips for public and civil servants till further notice. This was one of the decisions reached by the Presidential Task Force for the Control of COVID-19 after its inaugural meeting. Mitare Ikben reports.
Briefing the media on the outcome of its inaugural meeting, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustapha, who is also the chairman of the Presidential Task Force for the Control of COVID-19, directed the Ministry of Health and its agencies to upscale the nation's health emergency system to the highest level and put in place measures to further curb the spread of COVID-19. He said it has also become expedient to place an embargo on foreign trips.
Government has banned all forms of travels out of the country for whatever reason, whether for meetings, bilateral, multilateral, conferences, seminars, workshops, presentations, negotiations, and any form of other ceremonies. This ban will remain in place until further notice and until the situation of the pandemic nature of the coronavirus abates. With regards to the general public, we want to advise strongly the citizens in their own interests should cancel or postpone all non-essential travel abroad, including business and vacation trips.
The Presidential Task Force urged anyone returning to Nigeria from any country at all to strictly self-isolate for 14 days in their homes, in accordance with the guidelines of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control.
We believe strongly that this particular pandemic is the most important public health emergency of our generation, and we must treat it with every seriousness that it deserves.
Nigerians were also advised to continue to maintain high level of sanitation and hygiene as part of measures to contain the spread of COVID-19 in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, the World Bank and IFC's Board of Directors Tuesday approved an increased $14 billion package of fast-track financing to assist companies and countries in their efforts to prevent, detect and respond to rapid spread of COVID-19. They say the package will strengthen the national system for public health preparedness, including for disease containment, diagnosis and treatment, as well as support the private sector. And Nigeria and other developing countries that rely heavily on oil revenue are set to witness a decline as their income from oil and gas is projected to fall between 50% and 85% in 2020, reaching the lowest levels in more than 2 decades. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, and the International Energy Agency gave the projection in a joint statement issued Tuesday by the Secretary General of OPEC, Mohammed Barkindo, and the Executive Director of IEA. The projection was a fallout of the two leaders' review of the current situation in the global oil market, where they assessed the impact of COVID-19 and the recent broad-based financial and oil market volatility on the global economy. Commodities that were initially safe havens have begun to buckle as the global impact of coronavirus refuses to wane. Let's see how they are faring this Wednesday. The National Youth Service Corps management has shut all orientation camps nationwide over the spread of coronavirus. The directive, which came from the NYIC headquarters in Abuja early Wednesday morning, disrupted the orientation camp of the 2020 Batch A Stream 1 across the country. Olayinka Ojo visited the FCT orientation camp and has been speaking to some of the persons affected by the directive.
Most of the things I sell now, I'm doing sales. Like for example, those shoes over there, we sell them for 4,000, but now I'm doing them 2,000. Then I have some tops I'm doing for 1,500. Formerly it was 3,000. My dresses too, the same thing. If not because of this, you see a lot of coppers here patronizing us because we are here. Actually, we are here because of sales. But now, this one now is like I'm doing a clearance sales so that I can meet up. So if I don't do it, I don't think I'll cover up.
See, the camp is supposed to be 21 days, which is 3 weeks. Now, we only did 1 week, and at the end of the day, they said the coronavirus is out and they need to send everybody home. And as you can see, right now everybody is just confused because we paid a lot of money to come into this camp, and most of us have not even recovered back our money. So right now, people are just complaining.
At the close of trade, the all-share index rose 1.09% to close at 22,789.64 basis points, with market capitalization standing at 11 trillion naira. 671 million shares worth 10 billion naira exchanged hands in 7,247 deals at the end of the day's transaction. MTN, Guarantee Bank and Cadbury led the gainers chart, while Nestle, Okomo Oil and Dangote Cement were the decliners. Guarantee, Zenith Bank and Access Bank were the most active stocks. And global equities market tumble as investors fear government's need for more stimulus to combat coronavirus. Bosede Abel has an update of market performance across the globe.
Global markets continues to sink as investor sentiment rose in early trading of 18th March over the rapidly spreading coronavirus pandemic. European markets sank despite Western governments promising to release billions of dollars to help businesses and citizens get through the situation. DAX fell 3.56%, FTSE 100 3.45%, and CAC 40 2.46%. Shares in Asia fell in another day of turbulent trade. Hang Seng Index was 4.18% lower as of its final hour of trading. Shanghai Composite fell 1.83% to 2,728.76, and Nikkei 225 also shared earlier gains as it dropped 1.68% to close at 16,726.55. Africa's equity were mixed, even though coronavirus pandemic cases multiply. South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40 and Tunisia's Tunidex were negative, while Ghana's GSE Composite, Nairobi's All-Share, and Namibia's overall index posted gains.
Thank you, Abosede. The latest inflation report by the National Bureau of Statistics indicates that inflation has increased to 12.2% in February, an increase of 0.07 percentage points from 12.13% recorded in January. The last time the inflation rate was at this region was in 2018 in May, and the rate was 11.61%. On a month-on-month basis, the headline index increased 0.79% in February 2020, a 0.08% rate lower than the rate recorded in January. And on a month-on-month basis, the urban index rose by 0.82%, up 0.1% from 0.92% recorded in January of 2020. The urban inflation rate increased by 12.85% year-on-year in the review period from 12.78% recorded in January, while the rural inflation rate increased by 11.61 in February 2020 from 11.54 in January. The rural index also rose 0.76% in February 2020, down 0.07 from the rate recorded in January. The report also showed that food inflation increased to 14.9% in February, while core inflation, which excludes the price of volatile agricultural items, increased to 9.43%. All items inflation on year-on-year basis was highest in Bauchi with 14.47%, while Kwara at 9.59 recorded the lowest rise in headline year-on-year inflation. And 24 states of the Federation have met eligibility criteria for drawing out of the $750 million World Bank's performance-based grants. Leah Katung Babatunde reports that the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, while inaugurating the National Steering Committee for the State's Transparency, Accountability and Sustainable Program, says the Public Finance Management Initiative aims to promote fiscal discipline at the sub-national levels.
The year 2016 has its name etched in the history of Nigeria. It was that time Nigeria entered her first recession in 2 decades as oil prices slipped, with a revenue into the Federation account falling beyond expectation. The federal government extended the conditional budget support facility to 35 states through the Central Bank of Nigeria in 2017 to help them meet their statutory obligations at 9% interest rate. Nigeria then partnered the World Bank in the state's Fiscal Transparency, Accountability and Sustainability Program for Results, SIFTAS. Drawing from the $750 million loan is premised on an already established 22-point fiscal sustainability plan and the open government partnership commitments by the states,
which includes making sure that the states prepare their annual audited financial statements and publish them, making sure that they prepare their budgets and publish them, to making sure that they clean up their payroll and have biometric data of their staff.
We hope that the states will take the opportunity through SIFTAS to really strengthen their PFM systems so that the results are sustained beyond SIFTAS.
The 17-member steering committee of SIFTAS is expected to give strategic direction to the program coordination unit domiciled in the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning and ensure its smooth implementation.
Where physical discipline and accountability at the subnational level is very, very important for our country.
The setting up of the committee is predicated on SIFTA's successful implementation so far.
In the meantime, the oil and gas industry players are advocating an amendment of the Oil and Gas Free Trade Act 5, 2010 to guarantee efficiency and ensure improved service delivery. Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment Adeni Adebayo at a review meeting in Abuja said an amendment will reduce irregularities and close some administrative gaps in the oil and gas free zones. Chimobi Walter Anaji was there and reports.
The oil and gas free trade zones established by Decree 6, 1996 was aimed at attracting more foreign direct investment in the oil and gas sector of the economy with incentives for intending investors. However, this is not without its own challenges, as industry players say the amendment of the Act establishing the zone and its management under the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment is long overdue. They say the existing Act is impeding on the performance of trade arrangements and are advocating the amendment of some sections of the Act to reflect the current realities and international best practices on trade negotiations.
The reforms will be wide-ranging and will include reviews of the legal frameworks of agencies under the ministry with a view to repositioning them to effectively deliver on their mandate.
Now, Section 5, subsection 2 also states that the authority shall have power to take over and perform such other functions being hitherto performed by the Nigeria Export Processing Zones Authority. We have had a number of issues relating to this section.
The Free Trade Zones since establishment has attracted almost 200 business entities into the country's oil and gas sector.
Let's see how the Naira is faring alongside other major currencies. That report wraps up this edition of Business Express. We value your feedback, so keep the comments, observations and suggestions coming. Be informed all previous episodes are available on YouTube on NTA's channel. You can communicate with us on Twitter and the handle is @NTA News Now. Don't forget the hashtag BizExp. See you on Friday.